Hello, everyone. Shua Lake right here. I'm the founder of Grace and Hope Consulting. I'm a best-selling author, publisher, life coach, consultant, counselor. I wear many hats. But with all that I do, my mission is still the same, is to help people achieve mental and emotional wellness, reach their full potential, and live fulfilling lives. And I'm doing this series of author interviews and where I'm inviting people, my good friends, not just people that I met, but people who became friends or who were already friends who I had the privilege to collaborate on some writing projects. So today I have my very good friend Kirsten with me. I'll give her a chance to introduce herself, let us know who she is and what she does.
Hello, everyone. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity. My name is Kirsten Marie Peterson, and I am first and foremost a mom. A mom of five kids, and I happen to be a single mom. Four of my kids still live at home. My oldest daughter just recently moved out, so she still lives in the area. So actually, I'm literally doing her laundry right now for her. So even though
Always a
she's out of
mom,
the house,
right? Even when they
oh,
move out.
yeah, very much mom of five still. Um, and then I am a retired special education teacher. I spent 25 years teaching children who are visually impaired or blind. Loved every second of teaching the children. I just got worn down by all of the other stuff that goes with teaching. And let me tell you, I couldn't be happier that I retired when I did, so I didn't have to teach during this pandemic.
I can
I my
imagine.
I just feel so sorry for teachers right now. Um, so that's a little bit about my career. So that's what I went to college for, was to become a teacher. And then life kind of took a little detour and had some topsy-turvy moments in my family. And I felt like I had to come home and homeschool my son, one of my
Mhm.
sons, for a semester. There were just some bumps in the road that I didn't think were going to be resolved other than pulling him out of school. And so, as parents, we do what we have to. And
Yeah,
sometimes we make
yeah.
those hard choices. So I went ahead and took a leave of absence, came home, started to scramble and wonder what I could do online,
Mhm.
and started to find affiliate marketing and MLM stuff, and did whatever I could just to sort of piecemeal together a little bit of a career on, a little bit of income coming in.
Mhm.
And then my son was successful. He went back to school. And then I ended up with a surprise foster child, a foster baby. And I thought, this is really a great opportunity for me to stay home with a child.
Mhm.
I had
Mhm.
always had to send my kids to daycare. It broke my heart. I wanted to be a stay at home mom. So I
Mhm.
went ahead and took the leap of faith, and I retired early from teaching and decided to do whatever I had to stay home with my little one. And it's been a journey. Decided to sort of leave the MLM world behind because it just wasn't, the company I was with took a turn, and we separated paths, and ended up with doing writing. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Because I think sometimes people have the illusion that of some of us who write, it's like we have nothing else going on. Like you just sit at home, that's all you're just writing. You have five kids. Put
Yes.
writing aside, you're a busy mama, right? You're
Yes.
busy. And, but you make the time to write. And, we can both get into that in a little bit. But kind of share with us your journey. You already shared a little bit of how you get into writing. But when you were going through the whole, sorting out, the MLF stuff, the field marketing, and they're like, oh, now I can write. Like, what was that like? Take us back there and kind of share what really called you, if you want, to writing.
So, um a lot of times you just kind of take a leap of faith, and all of a sudden you're just doing, and you don't really stop and pause and think.
Mhm,
And it
mhm,
was great because now that I've done a couple of interviews here and there, you get these questions from people like you who give me a reason to stop and think. And I
mhm.
really honestly believe I became a writer as a child.
Yeah.
I used to write in my brain all the time. I had this incredible kingdom. I called it a kingdom. That was the setting of my story. And it
Mhm,
had all these unique characters in it. I, of course, was the prime character, and I was in charge of the kingdom. And I had conflict, and I had drama, and I had a beginning, a middle, an end of every story that went through my brain. And I would
mhm,
talk nonstop to my dad as we drove in the car, wherever we were driving. And I would just tell him these stories. I just
mhm,
simply never wrote them down. But
mhm,
clearly,
mhm,
I had a passion for storytelling. And just with the natural process of growing up and everything, I continued to read, but I never got the idea or the notion to write anything down.
Mhm.
And then junior high hit, and I started to sort of write nonfiction on my own. I kind of, during the summers, sort of took up investigating things I didn't know and learning more about it and coming up with reports. I
Nice.
would present my parents with reports at the end of the summer based on countries or religions or
Wow.
um, animals that I wanted to know more about.
Mhm.
So that was probably my first little taste of nonfiction writing for me, not for
Mhm.
school. And then I put it all aside, had my career, did plenty of writing with that. I didn't need additional writing, and was busy being a mom. And about 5.5 years ago, my brother passed away unexpectedly.
Mhm.
And as anyone knows, when you suffer a loss in your life, a lot of times things change,
Yeah. Yeah.
you realize real quick what's important and what
Mhm.
matters. My mom had previously had died 2 decades ago, and my dad died 8 months before my brother. But for some reason,
Wow.
that my brother was a significant kind of kick in my butt, like, get
Mhm.
your life together, figure things out. And I really decided I wanted something tangible to leave my children.
Mhm.
My mortality became very clear very quick, that there's no guarantee you're going to get to be elderly. There's no
Mhm.
guarantee that there's that next week, month, year. And I really wanted something that my children could have that had my name on it, that was about me or from me. And that's when kind of the wheels of writing sort of started to kick in.
Mhm.
And starting a nonprofit in my brother's memory started to kick in, that I could leave that nonprofit to them. And then I wanted to publish a book of my brother's poetry. So I started to look into that. And that's during all that investigating is when I happened upon you. And then everything kind of snowballed from there, didn't it?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
um, I believe that God puts people in our presence for a reason.
I agree.
And there have been many writers and publishers and editors that have sort of happened, I've crossed paths with over the last 3 years, 4 years. And for whatever reason, when I happened upon you, or you happened upon me, or however that happened,
I still don't know how we connected. I just know
I
we
don't
met
either. I
online, and
posted on
somehow
Facebook.
we got connected. It was meant to be.
Exactly. And that's kind of how it all happened. I decided that I was going to be working from home, and there's pretty finite amount of things you can do from home, right?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
can work a traditional business, but from the comfort of your computer. So you can do customer service or data entry,
Mhm.
that you're working for someone else. You can do an MLM, which is still working for someone else. It's not your product, it's not
Mhm.
your company. Or you can become a writer and have your own thing. And that's kind of what I decided. I decided that I really wanted my kids to have something that I made, that, and
Yeah.
I'm not crafty at all, so the Etsy thing is not going to happen. So I decided
Same
I better
here.
do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And that just took me to my own story. Like just like you, I've been writing when I was younger, wrote a few things in my journal, wrote songs in notebooks, and that friends will read. I'm like, oh my goodness, I wrote a few words here and there in writing projects for school. But I never again like took my writing seriously until I was faced with my own mortality. I was 33, had a stroke, and I'm like, whoa, I could have died. And all the things that I wanted to share with the world, all the things that I know have helped my own clients in counseling or coaching, all of those things that would have died with me. And I'm like, no, I want to leave something tangible. I want to leave something that one that will outlive me. And yeah, so definitely. And that's why I write. That's why I write. Yeah. So with your writing journey, so we connected somehow. We still don't know how. Someone on Facebook, I don't know how we connected,
I don't know.
but we connected on Facebook. And since then, you've been part of my mental health, the Made to Overcome Mental Health Edition #2, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And then we pulled you into the caregivers edition, which is coming out in 4 weeks.
Yeah,
And then also another client of mine who then became a mutual friend, both of us, was doing a book for foster and adoptive parents, and we pulled you into that as well. And as we
exactly.
speak, you just pulled, also got pulled into I Quit. So
Exactly.
I just did another interview before yours, and I was saying how it's like once and it's not that I could plan any of this, but it's like when you can say God sent people in your life that you're meant to connect with. And when you
Exactly.
do, it just like this lifelong partnership, and it's not like you're not forced to do any of this project. But it's like we have this common, desire to impact change and to leave this world better than we found it. And all these topics just speak to, all of us. So we keep all of us keep saying yes. I have an idea. I'm like, oh, friends, can we do this? And all of you say yes, and then before we know it, it's a book, and it's touching lives beyond what we could, individually do on our own. So thank you for being part of all those projects. And for those are at least the four projects that I know, and I know you're still working on your brother's book, and you have a novel book of your own that you kind of gave me a little hint about, that's also in the works. So when you're writing, whether it's for in a collaboration project or something for yourself, on that you're doing on your own, like where do you like how do you get in the flow, and then where do you find your inspiration?
Well, I definitely find my flow at night. It's kind of when that mom brain gets to turn off. So you're on all day and you're doing all the things for all the people. And then when I lay down and I'm so tired and all I want is sleep, it's like bing, bing, bing. All of a sudden my brain wakes up in a whole different avenue.
Yeah.
And so I've learned to keep a notebook and a pen right by my bed. And I jot down ideas then so that then I can go to sleep. So that's kind of when I literally will just be laying there and I'll get a paragraph that pops into my head.
Mhm.
And I just write it down really quick and it'll be about one of the books. And I'll have to write it down really quick, or I'll get an idea for a book like the one we had talked about, that I'm hoping to come out with in the spring of 2021, which is a book on sibling grief.
Mhm.
I immediately went to the internet and was Googling the name of the book that popped into my head to see if there was another book
Mhm.
out there of that name, and spent probably then another hour in the middle of the night just, once you're online, you just link to everything else and it
Yep,
just
yep.
snowballs.
Before you know it,
Um,
clicked to 20 pages. Yep.
exactly. So that's probably when I'm most in the flow. It's not ideal. It's not what I choose. It just sort of is the way it
Mhm.
is right now. Um, I'm hoping my boys go back to school finally starting tomorrow for at least the mornings. And so I'm hoping to actually have some planned writing time when my youngest daughter is sleeping and they're at school. And hopefully
Mhm.
I can maybe switch that a little bit. But
Yeah.
the other thing, as far as the inspiration, I think it's probably the same for every author. The inspiration is just my life. You write about what you know.
Mhm.
And so it's my childhood, how I was raised, what resonated with me and what I yearned for, and then what I had.
Mhm.
It's the My career as a special education teacher is huge in my
Mhm.
writing, not necessarily what I've written already, but what I hope to write to come. Because 25 years teaching, you have a lot of stories
Yeah.
and a lot of
Yeah.
wonderful things that have happened along the way that you've learned yourself or learned about your students. And then my children, of course, my life as a mom, my children, my four oldest are all adopted through foster care, and my youngest is still a foster child that I'm in the
Mhm.
process of adopting. And so their stories are so incredibly inspirational and so just life altering,
Yeah.
just things that I've learned that I never knew existed. And so a lot of what my inspiration is from them are the unknowns. I didn't know anything about mental illness in children until I became a mom. And suddenly that's a huge unknown that I've delved into and learned so much
Mhm.
and am so passionate about now. I didn't know anything about the foster care system until I took my children in. And now that's a huge passion of mine. So, the inspiration is just who I am, how I became this way, and what is in my day to day life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very good advice there. You write what you know. I think sometimes new writers think they have to measure up to someone's standard, like write like whoever they're reading. And as much as, it's good to find people who mentor you, who inspire you, but try to stay authentic, right? Try to stay true to who you are, because then things just flow. And your audience wants to read you. They don't want to read the other author who's like you, or whoever you're trying to imitate. So, what would be another advice that you will give new writers, new authors?
Well, that was one thing that I actually jotted down, kind of piggybacking on what you just said,
Mm-hmm.
that, be authentic to you. Don't think that you have to write a certain way, or don't assume that you don't have an audience out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fine line between being humble and being proud of who you are, and knowing that you have a voice and a place, and that I'm Christian, and so I believe that I'm a child of God.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am made for greatness. And so it's a very fine line to know in your heart that you're made for greatness, and that you have things to share with others that they can learn from, and you have wisdom to
Mm-hmm.
impart, and also maintaining your humble nature, that you are just one person in the world.
Yeah.
So I do think that, that takes, as a beginning author, I have done a lot of self-development, a lot of personal development, because
Mm-hmm.
it's hard. You have to kind of get over that stumbling block of any kind of low self-esteem
Mm-hmm.
in order to
Mm-hmm.
start writing, especially if you're writing nonfiction, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Another thing I would say to a new writer is the internet is your friend. Oh my gosh, the internet is such a blessing. And I think so many people undervalue it, and especially social media. I feel like people give it such a bad rap and such a bad name.
Mm-hmm.
It is what we want it to be. We control what our social media life is like, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody's
Yeah.
forcing it on us.
You're right.
And so my Facebook friend list is wonderfully uplifting. I get on there and I am so overfilled with joy as I scroll through, and I'm so uplifted and happy. And if
Mm-hmm.
I hit a bump in the road and somebody comes across and they're just, a negative Nancy kind of thing, I hit unfriend and they're
Yeah.
gone. I want to lift my world up. And so
Yeah.
I think becoming part of Facebook groups that have authors in them is a really good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just be a fly on the wall. Just scroll through the questions and the comments and the answers. You don't have to put yourself out there and possibly get, too much advice that overwhelms you. Just be a fly on the wall and look and see what people say. Being a part of, going to YouTube and looking up your favorite authors. If your
Mm-hmm.
genre is murder mystery, that's what you want to write, look up other murder mystery writers and see what they're talking about. See what their advice is. The last thing I would say is don't be afraid to become friends with other writers.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that, for a nanosecond, I was really afraid of. I was very intimidated by it. I was like, oh gosh, I don't want other people judging me. I don't want to become friends with authors. That doesn't seem right. But number one, you can learn so much from somebody else who's already been there, done that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you're not reinventing the wheel. The other thing is, there is no author that is in competition with you. And I think that's something that's unique to being a writer.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, if there's somebody, like, I'm a voracious reader, I read all the time, and I would read more if I could. Once my children are all out of the house, I will always have a book in my hand, I'm sure. But my genre that I crave, that I really love, is murder mystery. That just is what I've always loved. And
Mm-hmm.
so I read Mary Higgins Clark, everything by her. But that doesn't stop me from reading Nora Roberts, everything by her. And that doesn't stop me from reading Janet Evanovich, everything by her. So if you have somebody who loves to read, they're going to have a genre that they tend to like. But it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean they're not going to read from multiple authors in that genre. So you can't be afraid to, if I write nonfiction, I can have as many nonfiction author friends as I want, because I don't view them as competition.
Right.
They're actually kindred spirits. And if I have a friend that I refer to read, so and so's book, they're going to then refer somebody back to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think that, you can't underestimate the friendship of another author. Use the internet positively. Research as much as you can before
Mm-hmm.
you get started. Don't be afraid to ask questions, but also be very leery of the answer, because unfortunately there's a lot of sharks out there that'll grab you up
Yeah.
and they'll
Yeah.
try to pull a fast one on you. There's just a lot to learn, and unfortunately a lot of it is sort of the boring stuff. If you're a beginning writer, you're all about the creativity, you're all
Mm-hmm.
about the
Mm-hmm.
process and get the juices flowing and get your word out there. But you really do kind of have to learn a little bit about editing, and you have to learn a little bit about why a book cover is important, and you have to learn a little bit about publishing and the big publishing giants versus self-publishing and everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to learn a little bit about hitting the US market versus the international market.
Yeah.
And until you know all that stuff, you're going to be really, really at risk of being taken advantage of by somebody who's more scrupulous than what you would like. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yep, that's kind of my thoughts on it so far. I've been
Yeah.
very blessed. I've come across the people that have been honest and have been uplifting and have been very good, but I've seen the other side, and I've been
Mm-hmm.
intelligent enough to stay away from it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's sad. It's sad to see people lose their life savings because they're trying to write a book.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And I have a few clients who came to me after paying 3 times what we charge at Grayson Consulting to publish a book and not even getting half of what we're doing for them. So like they, the two that comes to mind recently, even the past couple months, they had paid, like I said, 3 times what we charge, and all that publisher did for them was literally publishing the book. They had to pay someone else for editing. They had to pay someone else for the book
Oh my
cover,
goodness.
and there was no marketing, no promotional graphics, no nothing additional. And I'm like, so what did
Yeah.
you pay for? And the
Yeah.
other one, it was similar, and that's all they did for her. So in the process of doing all this, she'll come to me for questions, and she's a dear friend, so I wouldn't mind answering questions. And at one point, I just say, "What is your publisher doing?" I'm like,
Right.
"No offense, but like once you sign those contracts, and I tell people this, you don't have to work with Grayson Consulting to get your book out there, but no matter who you work with, make sure that you are clear on what you're
Yeah.
paying for." Make sure, and then once I give you the list, ask, you do your own research and say, okay, what can you do on your own if that's what you want to do, and then what can they provide? And because you think you're signing a book contract for them to publish your book and help you promote it, for them it's just putting on Amazon for you, and you are stuck. And people like, I didn't even know when the book came out. I don't even have a manuscript. I don't, yeah, I don't have the date. It was on there. Nobody told me. And there's no book launch. Like, how did you hit all those categories on Amazon like before the book even came out? There was no point for that. I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm sorry to tell you, but
Yeah.
this is not how it should be. So make
Exactly.
sure
The
you know
other
what you're
thing,
getting. Yeah,
right. The other thing, two other things I would say to a new author. Number one, make sure you retain the rights to what you've written.
exactly.
You would assume as a new writer, you assume that they're your words, it's your story, it's your property. It's not. You have
Hmm.
to make sure that you're in an agreement where it is. So you
Yes.
want to make sure that you retain the rights to your words. And don't think that, oh, they're going to do right by me, it's okay. No. Keep what's of yours, keep it for
Hmm.
yourself. And we should know that by all the people, all the songwriters that have been taken advantage of, and they're now trying to buy back their songs, the rights to
Mm,
their songs. So
yeah.
it's the same way with authors. We want to make sure we retain what we wrote. It's our
Yeah.
property.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
doesn't mean you're still not going to take advantage of down the road, but it helps a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other thing I was going to say is that regardless of how great your publishing firm is, or how great your marketing firm is, or your posse that you've surrounded yourself with, your team, you're going to have to do due diligence on marketing yourself.
Exactly.
There are not many writers that are profitable writers to begin with. You're going to start low and you're going to be making pennies on the dollar. It is not a get rich quick career. It just simply
Hmm.
isn't.
Hmm.
There's millions and millions of books out there. And so, just by the sheer numbers, it isn't going to be a get rich quick thing. So,
Hmm.
you know, if you want to get rich quick thing, writing probably isn't it. It's very few and far between. You want to write for the love of writing. You want to write because you want to impart your wisdom to others. So by nature, if that's where you're coming from, if is where your heart is, you should want to talk about your words, talk about your books, talk about your projects to as many people that will listen, because you want them holding your words. You want them to learn from it. And then that is when the traction will pick up and when you'll be able to have a decent living from it. So
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
be afraid to do some of your own marketing.
Right, right. I had a coach who told me once, if you had a cure for cancer, will you hide it under your bed? Like, no, you want the whole world to know that, what you have can help someone else. So if you're
Exactly.
writing for a purpose, then your writing has meaning. And because of that, as a result, you can keep it to yourself.
Mhm.
And speaking about having being part of a writers community, we have a Facebook group called the Purposeful Writers Collective, where if anyone listening or watching this is invited to be part of it. And we do just what Kirsten was talking about. We're there. If you have a piece of writing you want people to give you an opinion on, you can share it there. You have questions, we put in the group. We do different, like when someone's publishing today, for example, as we record this, we have a friend of ours who's publishing, releasing a book today. The whole community is supporting her, sharing a thing, loving it, commenting on it, like helping her promote her work. But also we have fun, coaching sessions with me. And right now is November. We're starting a writing challenge, that way anybody can participate. So it's good to be in a community of people who have the same mindset, like kindred spirit, like you said, and are not there to compete with you, but we are all there so that all of us can win. And that's, I just love how beautiful, like everybody's heart is in that group. And yeah, it's just it's so nice to see where, a group where people honestly, truly, genuinely are there to support one another. And you can promote your own work on there as well. But even when people are doing it, it's such from a giving place, giving
Exactly.
space, and it's beautiful to see. Yeah.
It is. It's, um, I have to say the authors, editors, publishers that I've met that are associated with your publishing company are just such amazing women. And I know there's men as well, but the ones I've
Hmm.
really connected with closer are the women. And, there's one of the women that I'm part of, Tracy, who has
Hmm.
written a book for Simply Dedicated, that is for foster and adoptive parents. She and I are very similar in that we're both from the Midwest and we both are foster and adoptive parents to multiple kids and things like that. And yet we're so vastly different. And
Hmm.
that's where it comes into, and then you and I are incredibly different.
Hmm.
You come from a very different part of the world than I was raised,
Hmm.
and you have children that have different needs than my children do, things
Hmm.
like that. And yet we have very common ideas on how we want to impart our wisdom and help others and
Hmm.
things like that. So that's the thing, that if you open your mind, get your ego out of the way,
Hmm.
and really open your heart and your ears to listen, you can learn so much from other people. And you realize that because we're all so incredibly unique, there's no competition. There just
Yeah.
isn't, because no one can tell my story. No one
Exactly.
can tell how I see the world. And that's amazing,
Hmm.
and just so empowering.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well said. Yeah. I would love to continue this conversation. I know you and I, we have so many projects that we're, working on together. So we'll continue to, kind of rub elbows. But for others who are just now meeting you in this way, like where can they find you?
Facebook. Facebook is probably the easiest. So my name is my brand. So Kirsten Marie Peterson. And I have an author page. I have a Facebook group called Wandering Through Words with Kirsten Marie Peterson. And then I have a public profile. So if you're interested in connecting with me, you can always send me a private message. And, feel free to join my Facebook author page for sure. And like I said, my name is my brand. I also have an email address that I will make sure she can put in the comments, I'm sure. And again, it's just Kirsten Marie Peterson 201 at gmail.com. So yeah, I'm very easily found.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll make sure to share that. Thank you again for being here with me today. And thank you for all that you do to make a difference in this world.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Yeah, as always.